They weren't 300. They weren't alone. And the movie got the ending exactly backwards. The real Battle of Thermopylae is stranger than anything Hollywood put on screen, and the men who actually died there have been written out of the story for 2,500 years. The year is 480 BC. The Persian king Xerxes I is moving the largest army the ancient Mediterranean has ever seen down through northern Greece. Herodotus, who wrote within a generation of the battle, claimed nearly 2 million men. Modern historians put the real number closer to 150,000 fighting troops, still, by any standard, the largest invasion force in 3 centuries. To stop him, a coalition of about 30 Greek city-states picked a place called Thermopylae. The Hot Gates. A coastal corridor in central Greece where, in 480 BC, the mountains came down almost to the sea. Today the coastline has silted out, the modern shore is more than 5 kilometers east. But back then, the pass narrowed at one point to roughly 15 meters. The width of 14 modern parking spaces. The Persians had cavalry. They had archers. They had numbers. None of it mattered in a corridor 15 meters wide. The Greeks had chosen the only ground in Greece where a small force could fight an enormous one and not be flanked. This is where the movie starts lying. The famous 300 were 300 Spartans, full citizen soldiers, the homoi, the equals. Their king, Leonidas I, commanded them personally. But they were never alone. Marching with them at the pass were roughly 7,000 other Greeks. 700 hoplites from the small city of Thespians. 400 Thebans, sent under political duress. 1,000 men from Phocis, guarding the high ground. Locrians from Opus. Mantineans. Tegeans. Corinthians. Arcadians. Helots, Spartan state serfs serving as light troops, possibly outnumbering their masters 7-1. It was not a Spartan suicide mission. It was a Greek coalition holding operation, with a Spartan king in command of the elite spearhead. And Leonidas's orders, as far as we can reconstruct them, were never to die there. They were to hold the pass long enough for the rest of the Greek world to mobilize, and, crucially, for the Greek fleet under Themistocles to fight a delaying naval action at Artemisium, just offshore. Thermopylae and Artemisium were the same battle. Land and sea. They were meant to be won, not memorialized. When the Persian army arrived in mid-August, Xerxes waited 4 days. He could not believe so few men were really going to stand. Then, on the 5th day, he ordered the assault. What he sent in first were the Medes and the Scythians, light infantry in linen and wicker, armed with short spears and reed-shafted arrows. They came down a corridor 15 meters wide. And they hit a wall. The Greek phalanx in 480 BC was the most lethal close-formation infantry in the world. Each hoplite carried a round wooden shield faced in bronze, weighing 6 to 7 kilograms. Each shield protected its bearer's left side and his neighbor's right. A single hoplite was vulnerable. A line of them was a moving wall. Their primary weapon was the dory, a 2.5-meter ash spear with an iron leaf-shaped point. The second-rank spears projected past the first-rank's shoulders. The third rank held theirs upright, ready to step in. Against Persian short spears and lightly armored bowmen funneled into a corridor too narrow to deploy, the result was not really a battle. It was a meat grinder operating in slow, disciplined steps forward. Persian arrows fell. Herodotus reports a Spartan named Dionysus told the arrows would block out the sun, answering, "Good. Then we will fight in the shade." On day 2, Xerxes sent in the immortals, his elite 10,000, kept always at exact strength. They fared no better. By nightfall, the pass was still held. By nightfall, the king on the throne above the field had no plan that worked. What broke Thermopylae was not Persian courage. It was a road. A local Greek named Ephialtes, son of Eurydemus, of the Malian people, came into the Persian camp on the second night and told Xerxes about the Anapia path. A narrow trail that climbed up over the ridge, along the spine of the mountain, and came down behind the Greek position at the pass. Xerxes sent the immortals up that path under cover of darkness. By dawn on the third day, they were descending behind the Greek line. The Phocians who were supposed to guard the trail were taken by surprise, fired on briefly, and withdrew uphill. Leonidas had outriders. He knew within hours that he was about to be encircled. And then he made a decision the movie does not show. He dismissed most of the army. The Corinthians, the Tegeans, the Mantineans, the Arcadians, the Locrians, Leonidas ordered them to fall back south while the pass was still open. The coalition would survive to fight again. He kept his 300 Spartans, because Spartan law forbade them to retreat. He kept the 400 Thebans, who Herodotus says were held effectively as hostages for their city's loyalty. And he kept the 700 men of Thespians. The Thespians were not ordered to stay. They volunteered. Every man of military age that the city of Thespians could field, 700 of them, chose to die in a pass next to people who were not their kin. The movie left them out. On the morning of the third day, with the immortals coming down behind them, Leonidas marched his remaining force out from the narrowest point of the pass into open ground. This was not heroic delusion. It was tactics. By advancing onto wider ground, the Spartans and Thespians could inflict the maximum damage on the main Persian army before being surrounded, buying every minute they could for the retreating coalition and the fleet at Artemisium. Herodotus tells us their spears broke and they fought with swords. When the swords broke, they fought with hands and teeth. 2 of Xerxes's brothers were among the dead. Leonidas fell early on day 3. The Spartans recovered his body 4 times from Persian attempts to seize it. They withdrew finally to a small hillock, formed a ring, and were buried under arrows from a Persian army that had stopped trying to fight them hand to hand. Every Spartan died. Every Thespian died. The 400 Thebans surrendered partway through the action. Herodotus, who clearly disliked Thebes, says they did. Modern historians read it as the politically forced contingent doing what politically forced contingents do. The popular memory of Thermopylae is that it was a glorious defeat. It was not. It was a successful delaying action, and the people who benefited were already moving. While Leonidas's men were dying on the third morning, the Athenian politician Themistocles was completing the evacuation of Athens. Women, children, and elderly across the strait to Salamis and Troezen. The men of fighting age onto the warships of the Greek fleet. The city itself, abandoned to the fire that Xerxes would set a few weeks later. And the same days, just up the coast at Artemisium, the Greek fleet was bleeding the Persian navy in a series of running engagements that left Xerxes short of ships before the decisive battle even began. Thermopylae was the diversion. The hammer was the sea. In September of 480 BC, 2 months after Leonidas died, Themistocles drew the Persian fleet into the narrows of Salamis and destroyed it. And Salamis is where the Persian Empire actually broke. Xerxes withdrew with most of his army to winter quarters. His remaining force was crushed the next summer at Plataea. Greece survived because 3 days at the hot gates had bought the time to fight on better ground. So count the things the popular story gets wrong. They were not 300. They were 7,000, until the third morning. Then they were 1,000. And every one of those last 1,000, the 300 Spartans, the 700 Thespians, fought and died together. They were not abandoned. They had been ordered to hold, and they had held. They did not lose. They had been buying time, and the